and welcome back to Salmon's Pizzeria podcast. You'll be enjoying my first smile, or first reason to smile of the season as well, as Rangers finally picked up some league points. Today I am joined by Darren. Darren, looks like you got a little bit of a nosebleed. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. A bit too happy. It feels weird to be a happy Hearts fan recently, but I absolutely buzzing today.
And Innes, plenty of reasons to smile as a Hibs fan just now, but maybe the biggest one not to.
Yeah, it's not. Listen, we started fairly well with the the European games we had, but it's just we're going through a bit of a lull at the moment with David Gray. I'm sure he'll be back, like all big clubs do, bounce back.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one hoping for a bounce back. Well, I think we'll crack on. It's not really an elephant in the room because it's not news. It's been this way for a while, but we'll start at the top of the table. And it's Hearts, Darren. It's your club. Beat newly promoted Falkirk 3-0 in some style and with some goals as well. It must be a pretty good feeling in the stands at Tynecastle at the moment.
Yeah, Tynecastle's absolutely buzzing now. It has a weird, especially after last season. Didn't expect how quick turnaround it was going to be for last season to this season, but started off brilliant. The new players have gelled really well, and it just seems to be getting strength for strength. For the start of the season, we're winning, but we're just grinding out results. But I feel like now we're actually playing well, and Falkirk never really gloving us on Saturday. It was quite an easy 3 points.
Yeah, I think.
Your third league title in October, is it in the past?
I'm not getting too confident yet. Maybe wait till the end of October, see where we're after that. So some hard games coming up. So
I was going to say. I mean, you touched on it there, Darren. The new signings. Well, obviously, somebody who maybe feels like a new signing after last season as well is Lawrence Shanklin finding form again. But I'm going to butcher this here. But is it Kizarides? Scored potentially goal of the season. That was an absolute stunner.
Absolute pizza goal. The way he just cuts in to the left and just opens his body up and just calls it right at the top corner. From where I was sitting, it looked like it was going over the bar at one point and it just dipped in the last second. It was some strike, some goal. He's going to be a great player for us this season.
Do you think that's, Tony Bloom's system's kind of reaping its rewards already? Because Hearts seem to, like you say, have had a few signings which have come in and have hit the ground running. I mean, obviously, Kizarides, as you said, we've got Claudio Braga as well on the wings. And, I mean, Lawrence Shanklin re-signing has been big for you guys as well.
With Kizarides, he was signed before even like James Town and that came into it. He was like a pre-contract last season. So the new analytics software is working quite well so far. We've still to get a record signing as well. He played for 20 minutes against Livingston and get injured. Agu for Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
So we've still strengthening our squad as well, which is quite good. And we still get the boy for Kazakhstan coming in January.
Yeah. Innes, you obviously saw a bit of Falkirk last weekend, or a couple of weekends ago, and it wasn't the most positive result for Hibs. But from a Falkirk perspective, they looked pretty difficult to break down, especially in the second half of that game. But Hearts just kind of undid them. Do you expect Falkirk to be in a relegation battle this season?
I think they will, but I think they've just got enough.
I meant Innes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
All right, they can't stop talking at the minute because they're talking. That was on Tuesday night. I think, to be honest, Falkirk exploited a Hibs team that's, I don't know, it's got a bit of a weak point at the moment. It's losing concentration towards the end of the half, and I think they were just able to capitalise on a Hibs team that's shaky in terms of their mentality at the minute. Going into it, I thought they'd actually recruited quite well. I think Brian Graham, for instance, was quite a good signing. I quite like that signing. I think the big boy that scored the goal, Henderson, he's a good player. I mean, naturally, they're going to be favourites to be in amongst that because it's one thing getting promoted into the Championship, but to do two in a row is quite a lot. So I don't know. I think they could. I think they could struggle a little bit, but I think they've got enough to beat teams and pick up points along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. They are sitting in 11th just now, doing probably what most people expected them to do, and they will be battling it out. We'll move one space down. Innes, we'll stick with you because in second place is Celtic. They'll be disappointed with that because they dropped points at the weekend, and Hibs helped out their Edinburgh rivals with a pretty grinded out 0-0 in the end.
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, it didn't look like the same Celtic that I saw last season. Even though Celtic had a lot of chances, it didn't feel like there was an air of inevitability about them scoring. I think last season you were expecting Celtic to score and you knew it was going to happen, but I didn't. As many chances as they had, they didn't feel as prolific. I mean, the stadium was half empty. For instance, they did their 12-minute silence at the start. It just doesn't feel like a club that's together at the minute. The team are clearly a little bit disjointed. You've got players like Callum McGregor, who's a year older, has maybe lost a half yard. Dyson isn't quite firing. They're just not quite at it. I expect Celtic to pick up back up at one point. It's just been a bit of a sluggish start. Does expect Hearts to keep it up. I don't know. It's yet to be seen. There was a lot of talk about the analytics, but to be honest with you, I think the reason they're doing it well is because they've got a good Scottish manager that knows how to set up a
Yeah,
football team. Quite simply,
exactly.
the analytics, gave them that manager last season. He didn't really know what he was doing, to be honest. I think there's something to be said about a manager that knows the league, knows how to get the best out of good Scottish players. Yeah, sprinkled in with a couple of good players like Claudio Braga up top and that, but I think having someone that knows the league has been the difference at the moment. That's why they're picking up points to everyone below them.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it there, saying that it doesn't seem like the Celtic of last season where there was kind of inevitability that, maybe we can put with Liverpool at the moment. They seem to be scoring late goals every single week, but that is what you expected and expect from Celtic. Darren, I'll go to you. But after the game, both Cal McGregor and Brendan Rodgers said that it was a really strong performance from Celtic. But if they can't get over the line, because that's what we know Celtic as, is even if
Yeah,
they play poorly, they get over the line. Never mind if they play good. If they play poorly, they get over the line. And maybe in a game that they have as many chances as they did, or as the stats say, anyways, you'd expect that they might not score until the 85th minute, but it ends 2 or 3-0 to Celtic because that is in the years gone by what they do. Does that maybe? I know you said you're not getting ahead of yourself, but does that maybe kind of give you a little bit of hope in terms of the fact that Celtic are probably going to slip up again?
it gives me a wee bit of hope, but over the experience of years, you just have that in the back of your mind, Celtic, well, they maybe like start off a bit bad, but then maybe like mid-October, they just kick into gear and they just roll through the rest of the season. But I feel like now, like the fans as well, the club's not together at all at this point in stage, especially obviously missing out Champions League. But I just feel like if it's going to be a time if somebody's going to challenge Old Firm, it's this season because both of them are just nowhere near as good as they've been for the last few years.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
will add to that. I will add to that as well, Alex. Like Hibs weren't very good on Saturday.
yeah,
It's not like Hibs were like this unbelievable team at the back, well organised, blocking shots and all that. Like the keeper didn't have, he wasn't making tremendous saves every 10 minutes or anything to keep Hibs in the game. I didn't feel like Hibs particularly looked very comfortable at the back. It wasn't like they were dealing with Hibs that were, popping the ball about, trying to create some chances, but are well organised at the back. I actually thought Hibs were quite poor on Saturday. But Celtic just didn't look that same threat as they were, and it's honestly the worst I've seen them in a long, long time. I think for Hearts, they just need to keep winning and just see what happens. I think it's a bit drastic to start looking at the league title in May, but if they can keep winning, they can definitely get onto a big season for them because it's been a couple of years since they've had one.
yeah. I think Innes. What I was going to ask then, especially after the defeat at Ibrox in the League Cup, it's a different kind of setup. You're not going to go and try and take a team out of the cup, and a point at Celtic Park for anyone is a good point. But did you kind of fear anything going into the weekend? Because I know that there's a lot of talk about Ibrox and Rangers, and teams don't fear going there anymore. But seeing Celtic slip up in recent weeks and months, I mean, may it be Kairat Almaty, or I mean, they on opening day they barely got past St Mirren. They couldn't beat let's be honest, a very very poor Rangers team at Ibrox, and they didn't even look like threatening in that game. But yeah, did you fear the kind of beatings that Celtic are known to put on teams at Celtic Park?
No, not really. I mean, obviously before the game a little bit because I thought Hibs were pretty tame against Rangers the week before. Uh, you start to think because of the amount of goals Hibs are losing at the back, you're thinking, is this going to be another bad day for us? But honestly, as I said, I was watching the game. I didn't feel particularly feared watching it. Okay, Celtic had an offside goal, for instance, and they had a few chances where they maybe could have scored. But again, it wasn't this, it wasn't like it looked like a Celtic Park where you're going out there and you're feeling the atmosphere and all that. It was nothing like that at all. As I said, it was half empty. Like,
yeah. I mean, you said there as well that Hibs have been leaking goals this season, and that is that is the truth. How good does it feel to have a clean sheet?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Hanley came in the sweeper role that Rocky's been in and made a big difference. I'm Rocky's biggest fan, but I think some of his positional sense at times can be a bit iffy. O'Hara, after some brilliant performances in Europe, just seems to be a little bit off it. Our man Ardale at the back, who was unbelievable last season, he's just all of a sudden started to produce a few mistakes as well. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern for Hibs. I think they were always going to go through a bit of a lull under David Gray. I think it was unreasonable to expect us to continue league winning form for like a season and a half. That's just not going to happen. Like we've not got the squad that a Celtic does have. But yeah, I think it'll be a big test for Hibs on Saturday. That'll be the big test to see where Hibs really are. It'll be a good game at Tynecastle. I think it'll be fairly even, and we'll see what happens there. I think that'll be the test of the back line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to bring it on to that nicely, but just before I did, I was going to mention that Rocky Bashiri, to me, is the Fashion Sakala of centre backs. I don't know if that, but like it's just Fashion Sakala didn't know what he was doing, and
I
that
think he
was
scored
what
more
made
goals
him.
than Sakala.
Yeah, probably. No, Sakala was all right. He didn't know that he was scoring the goals, but he did score them. I always remember his Sue away to Annan Athletic. I mean, how could you forget? So, yeah, but that's what I was going to actually ask, because I imagine that the next time a podcast is available will be after the game. So I'm going to make you both put your heads and hearts on the line here and give me a score prediction. So, Darren, I'll go to you first. And what are you expecting from the first Edinburgh derby of the season?
I know form's got nothing to do with the Edinburgh derby. You could be winning 25 games in a row. You go into a derby, it's going to be an equal game. It's going to be an absolute terrible game to watch, probably, because it normally is. But my head is saying that we should win comfortably. We should win. I'm going to say 2-0. 2-0 Hearts.
Do you think, just before I take this to you, Innes, do you think these are the kind of games, you mentioned that obviously you have Celtic at Tynecastle coming up as well. These are the kind of games, if you get through them with a positive result, I know, again, sorry, Innes, because I know it is mid-October and no matter what happens at the end of the season, we will see Celtic lift the trophy. It's just inevitable. It will happen. But do you think these are the kind of results, Darren, that if you get them, then you start to go, okay, this could be a year where we maybe split the old firm, or at least, you're very much up there in the conversation.
I feel like if we get through October unbeaten, we are challenging for the title. Definitely, Rangers don't look like they'll even get fourth or fifth, never mind finishing second. But I feel like if we go through October, we beat Hibs, and even if we beat Celtic at the end, we must see ourselves as contenders.
Yeah, absolutely. Innes, a score prediction for the weekend then.
I'll note there is 3 teams unbeaten in the league just now. One is Hibs. I think Hibs will be underestimated going into Saturday just because they have had a few problems, but I still think there's loads of good players in that team. I think you'll see a different Hibs. I think they'll be a lot more organised going into Tynecastle. David Gray knows how to go and get a result there. I think if you put a gun to my head, I wouldn't be as confident as I was a few weeks ago. Truthfully, I think any Hibs fan that's going in confident is a bit delusional. To be fair, I think Hearts are well organised. They're getting results, even if it's not looking that great,
Yeah.
and they fancy themselves on Saturday. But that's exactly where Hibs fans want Hearts. Believe in their own hype, overconfident. That's usually where we can nick a result against them. So I'm going to go 1-0.
Do you know what I was going to say? And that kind of reinforces it, but it's 1-1 a good result for Hibs in the kind of current scheme of things. I know form goes out the window for derbies, but it's 1-1 a good result for Hibs at the moment.
Yeah, look, Tynecastle's always really difficult to go and get a result. History tells you that for Hibs fans, unfortunately. I think I've seen one victory, and I've been like a lot. Do you know what I mean? It's always difficult to go. What I will say is we've went with worse teams and got results. We've went with better teams and not got results. I think it'll be its own game. It'll be unique. It'll be who's up for it on the day. If both teams are there, it'll be a cracking game. I disagree with that, Dan. I think it'll actually be quite good football. I think I think the teams have actually got both good standard of Rangers in there, to be honest with you. I think it'll be some decent football. If Hearts get a goal, if Hearts get the first goal, I think that could be pivotal. I think because Hibs have got a collapse in them, which is concerning. But if Hibs can stay at the game and get the first goal, then who knows?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it's hard to tell with the derby, isn't it? Because I think the football's always quite dire for you unless your team wins, and that you just look at the game as that was absolutely horrible. Every second of that was horrible. Even if it's a draw, you look at it and you go, "That was terrible. Nobody played good football." But yeah, we'll move swiftly on, but we'll move on to another strong performing team who are shooting up the table and holding strength in third is St Mirren, another manager who knows the league, as you said, Innes, and Stephen Robinson, and he's doing a cracking job. They've brought in good players. Killian Phillips is one of them, and he scored their only goal in the 1-0 win against Dundee. Darren, St Mirren will be hoping for another top six finish, and with this kind of start to the season, if they can, carry it on, this could be looking at more European qualifiers next year.
Yeah, definitely. Over the past few years, St Mirren has gradually even though they've lost a lot of their big players, they just seem to just kick into gear again and just comfortably finish about mid-table. So they've actually been doing quite well recently, and they started off well again. And when we went there in the League Cup, it was a hard. They obviously knocked us out in penalty kicks, and they're a hard physical team. They're really hard to beat, and you wouldn't fancy any team going to St Mirren Park and try and get results because it's a really hard place to go to recently.
Yeah, I was going to say that. And it's the Smissa seems a fortress for Stephen Robinson's side, and another 3 points against Dundee.
Yeah, I think they're really, really strong. I think what's crucial for St Mirren is they can upset a team like Hibs and Hearts. Obviously, they find it difficult against the Old Firm, everyone does, but they take points off everyone else and they make it really difficult for the slightly bigger spenders in the league, like Hibs, Hearts, and Aberdeen. I think what would be exciting for a St Mirren fan at the moment is if they get, as I said, a Hibs, Hearts, and Aberdeen, or a Rangers at the moment at Hampden. Then they could win that. I know they've not got that for the League Cup, but I'm talking about going forward. They're looking at that Scottish Cup. They could get quite far, and that's quite.
They could. I mean, they're obviously in the semi-final against Motherwell. If they beat them, then they could be looking at a Rangers or even a Celtic, who in current time it's maybe the best time to play them in a cup final. As Aberdeen showed at the end of the season. I was going to kind of come on to the point of Russell Martin later, but we've mentioned Derek McInnes.
But you can't help yourself because you hate him.
Now mentioned Stephen Robinson. If I am one of these people that earlier on this podcast, I mean, you can go back to a podcast we did after the Bruges game, and Scott Kerr said that we should have had Derek McInnes, and I said we should stop the podcast there because it was a ludicrous claim. But at the same time, we've gone for Russell Martin, who's not got the results. He's not got the no, and this is that kind of thing that comes in, and some people go, you need to get a manager who knows the league, and then there's this argument that goes, well, you don't really need to that because it's a small pool, but surely Rangers would be better off with someone like Stephen Robinson.
I would have said that. I said Derek McInnes actually going in when they were trying to decide a manager because he's got that Rangers connection. He knows the league really well. And there was a time where like big clubs in England were looking at McInnes with how well he was doing Aberdeen. That's including Rangers as well. They were looking at McInnes. I thought that fit actually made sense. And how well he's doing at Hearts, I think that just proves my point for me. I think Rangers would be doing a lot better in the league if they had Derek McInnes in charge. Simple as that, really.
Darren, do you think Rangers are maybe a little bit snobby? I mean, we know that in terms of players, and you've seen the benefits of that in terms of we changed some of the staff, and looked like Mulligan was coming in, and then the new staff said no, we don't want Mulligan, and now he's gone to Hibs and hit the ground running. But Darren, do you think that Rangers are maybe snobby? I don't know if snobby is the right word, but they like to kind of be stubborn and go, well, he turned us down years ago, so that bridge is closed forever. Derek McInnes will never be allowed to manage Rangers simply because he turned the opportunity down, and because we've done that before. We've been pretty stubborn in moments like that. I know it's a new board, but there'll still be people around the club who feel hurt from that decision many years ago.
I do feel like Rangers, like the board and the fans, are always wanting some like big name, big foreign name. They don't want to just settle with like just a safe kind of Scottish manager. I just feel that's sometimes a downfall because I don't think Rangers or Celtic fans would accept, I don't know, Derek McInnes or even Lawrence Shankland. there was obviously the links with Lawrence Shanklin a couple of years ago, and a lot of Rangers fans didn't want him because he wasn't a fancy foreign name.
Yeah, I
But
was
I
going
think
to
he would
say
have.
that, Darren. I was about to say that if Rangers had brought in Derek McInnes, who would the first thing he would have done was bought Lawrence Shanklin, 100%. They'd
Yeah,
be top of the league at the minute. Fact.
aye, 100%.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll move on. You talked about the unbeaten clubs. We've gone over two of them. We'll move to Motherwell, who, although unbeaten, picked up their first win of the league campaign. Yeah, two very big points in this one. I mean, they leave it late against Aberdeen to win 2-0. I think the first goal comes in something like the 92nd minute, and the second comes in the 97th. Before we go on to the northeast disaster, Motherwell started pretty strong, Darren. They've started well in the league, as we said. They're unbeaten, and also they're into a cup semi final. So yeah, it's been a strong start for their new manager.
Yeah, they look really good this year. I'm really impressed with the player Just. I think he's a great player for Motherwell now. He links up, play well, and he's a threat going forward. I just feel like they had a decent striker. I don't really rate that. I don't even pronounce his name. It's Strapolopoulos or something like that. But I think if they had a really good striker, they'd probably win more games. I just feel like he's just missed so many opportunities. And if they did have a decent striker, I feel like they'd be up way up the table. But they look strong
Yeah,
this year.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point you raise, but in terms of what they do have, and it's Jens Askew, isn't it? The Danish man. Is he Danish? Yeah, I think he's Danish. Their new manager, and it's been a pretty strong start. I mean, they look very good in the opening day. I think.
Oh.
Ooh.
Brief pause. We're still recording. Our host is away.
He's away.
Yeah. Don't really know what to do. Are you going on Saturday?
I'll be there on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
I'm looking forward to it actually. Can he beat a derby, couldn't you know? But
I stay away from it, mate, because we get honestly
yeah.
Tynecastle I've got such a bad record there that it's just better if I stay away.
I know. I'll look forward to it now. Maybe Friday night I'll start getting nervous about it. I'll start getting that kind of pre-match nerves. But
Yeah, I think Hearts have got every right to be really confident. I think in the same way that Hibs were very confident going into the last one at Easter Road. You say form goes out the window, but I don't know. It can have momentum in spells
yeah,
of the game. You know what I mean? And I think that if Hearts show up and do what they've been doing, then Hibs need to be at their best to then compete again.
definitely.
But like Hibs can score goals, you know what I mean, which is
And
actually
more
like
afraid.
is underestimated in a derby. If you can score, then it's absolutely huge. And that I think that could be crucial for Hibs. I think like Jamie McGrath's decent. Like obviously we've got Boyle and Bowie up top. Like if we get the
Yeah,
first goal, then it's anyone's game for me.
aye,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, if you just don't know, but you just don't know. But I feel like Bowie and that's on form. He'll be a big threat. We need to just kind of mark him out the game.
Yeah.
So you know what. But I'm still a
Well,
big good game.
what do you mean? No, no.
I know, probably. That's it. And everyone all this hype and all that, probably a 0-0 scrappy draw.
Jens Askew has been a pretty strong start for him in this. Obviously, yeah, as Darren touched on, they've maybe not got the striker and the goals that they were after, but back-to-back wins against Aberdeen now, one in the League Cup and this one in the league. They'll be maybe hoping for top six as well this season.
I swear Motherwell are really good. They're playing decent football. And these are the kind of teams that like worry not just like Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen, but the
Yeah.
Old Firm as well, because they can take points off them. I'm pretty sure they drew with Rangers at the start of the season as well.
Yeah, Rangers were no. I would like to note Rangers were lucky to get away with
Yeah,
a
no,
point from
totally.
that game.
I actually think they're playing really good football and like they're putting balls into space, mate, and their players are just making it. You know what I mean? Honestly, some of the football's been really, really good. I think they and St Mirren are well deserved to be in that League Cup semi final. As I said, they can beat teams on their day, which is important for a team like in below the Old Firm because like your biggest day might be if you win a cup once every 10 years, once every 20 years. You know what I mean? So you need to be able on those times that you're on form, be able to beat teams, and they can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one that probably is good news for both of you because Hibs, Hearts, and Aberdeen never ever seem to be good at the same time. That you'll both be enjoying the fact that Aberdeen are rock bottom, haven't scored a league goal this season, are absolutely terrible, and in a game that with a couple of minutes to go, they are almost scoring a winner on the counter attack. They lose 2-0. Darren, it's a disaster for Jimmy Tulane and Aberdeen at the moment.
Pretty much. Aye, there's just nothing's going for them at all. Even they've got their Europe draw as well this year. Is quite for a Conference League. It's quite hard ties they've got, so I don't see them picking up any points in that either. But aye, it's a sorry state for Aberdeen now. I'm surprised. I don't think the cup win is keeping them there now. Like that's why I don't think he sacked it, because obviously he's living off that Scottish Cup win. But if it's any other manager, they're probably long gone by now, because the football they're playing, it just looks like they've no idea what they want to do.
They weren't that great at the end of last season either. Like
No,
they got one. They beat us at Batodry, Nisbet, Screamer, fair enough. But apart from that, they were really poor. I mean, if you look at that sliding doors moment where Bashiri scores in the last minute for us to draw with Aberdeen, and they were top of the league, mate. I think they've had like 4 wins since
so
then.
it's really bad.
They absolutely capitulated because I mean, we talk about it, and it's different this season because Rangers are really, really poor and do not look up to much at all. Last season, it wasn't a good start, but you still expected them to win a few games, and they were still picking up points. And obviously, Philippe Clement wasn't doing great, but it wasn't this bad. And you always knew that at some point, Rangers would return to second place. It was a matter of when, not if. But especially going on the start of the season, you thought maybe Aberdeen can push them a little bit. You didn't expect it to be turned around before Christmas. That absolute capitulation from Aberdeen was mental, and it's only kind of continued since. They're going to be pretty worried now, as you said, Darren. They start their European campaign this week with Shakhtar Donetsk at home, and then they've got Dundee at home. Then it's followed up. If they don't win that Dundee game, it's followed up by St Mirren away, AEK away, Hibs at home, Kilmarnock away, Rangers away, the other AEK away, then Motherwell, who have just beaten them twice, and then Hearts. And that takes you into almost December. And that's not looking like a single point at the moment. That's really, really difficult place to be.
Yeah, I was about to say as well, like, there isn't an inevitability about picking up wins like there is with Celtic and Rangers, because Celtic and Rangers spend that much money that there's that much quality there that it just happens. Darren, you'll know yourself, like, you can go spells of months without a win. We've seen Hibs and Hearts relegated in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Twice, actually. It can happen. If they can go a few. Sorry, I just thought I'd dig that in there. Just
yeah.
It's an harsh chat in there, but you could go months without a win. And honestly, he's just not been good enough in the league. Okay, he's had a Scottish Cup, that's brilliant, but they could risk being at that bottom of the table if they don't sort out that situation soon.
Innes, I'll stick with you on that one because you said, obviously Jimmy Tulane is. Well, Darren, you said that Jimmy Tulane's probably only kind of holding on because of the Scottish Cup. But Innes, you mentioned, or not you mentioned, but you went through something similar at the beginning of David Gray's tenure, where you couldn't buy a win. It was really difficult, and you were bottom of the table or fighting for bottom with Hearts at that time. And it was 2 really, really poor teams. But you stuck with David Gray. You got through it. And as you said, you were on title-winning form at the end of the season, and kind of coming into this season, a decent and maybe unfortunate draw and score lines in Europe, and a couple of shaky moments at the back, but still he's the man to go forward. But do you think that Aberdeen should stick with Jimmy Tulane, or is this a kind of what are you waiting for, and a when not if in terms of sacking him?
Yeah, I think the comparison it doesn't work, unfortunately, because Jimmy Tulane it's almost like he had a manager's bounce at the start of last season, and then it's been poor ever since. Yeah. David Gray inherited, excuse my French, but a shit show at Hibs, and that was from above the management as well. What he inherited was insane, and he's worked it out, and it's been good ever since. Really, okay, it's been a bit of a shaky start with a few draws and all that, but in terms of being a Hibs fan, we've had the most that we can expect of a Hibs team since then. Jimmy Tulane has been really poor in the league. If you take out that Scottish Cup run, it's been awful, and it doesn't really seem like it's getting better. And there's good players in there: Stuart Armstrong, Kevin Nisbet. The list will go on. I can't name you the Aberdeen team, but honestly, like Another manager gets more out of those players. That's a simple fact. And I think if they bite the bullet now, they can still turn around and get a half decent season. But the results can't go on like this. Not a club like Aberdeen.
Yeah, Darren. A lot of other clubs would, give up their lives for a Scottish Cup, and
Yeah.
what that meant to Aberdeen was obviously a huge amount. However, football is the results business, and is it maybe time to go? Thank you for what you did do, and the cup win, but we need to get back to a bit of a league form.
Yeah, 100%. As I said there, that a club like Aberdeen should be nowhere near the bottom of the table. I just feel like I think the Aberdeen fans themselves have had enough now. We've seen it where they were chatting to get sacked at the Dundee United defeat the other week. Yeah, he needs to go. They need a change because it keeps going like this. His years ran off the fixtures there. It doesn't look good at all with him in charge. It just looks like worse and worse for Aberdeen
And
unless they change it.
they need to manage it that it doesn't turn sour before he does leave, because he's obviously
Aye,
an iconic Aberdeen manager. He always go down
yeah,
for those huge victories against Hearts and against Celtic. It needs to be left amicably, and the club need to manage that because it will turn sour. I mean, listen, we're all Scotland fans. Listen, Steve Clark took us to €2 and it's turned awfully sour in that department. You know what I mean? Like, it can happen, especially in the age of social media. But
I
I
know.
think also, like I said at the start of the season, the biggest thing that could have happened to Hibs might be that we don't get into this group stage football because no one's been able to sustain it in terms of
Aye.
outside the Old Firm. And they're going to be having games thick and fast until Christmas. And you just don't see them getting any results at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that saying that I think it's Green Goblin, isn't it? You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So
Yeah.
maybe that's exactly what's happening. You mentioned Dundee United, Darren. We'll move on to them. They sit fifth in the table, but they succumbed to Kilmarnock, a 2-0 defeat. Robbie Dees and Bruce Anderson with the goals. Yeah, Kilmarnock were maybe a club that people didn't expect much from this season. There wasn't a lot of kind of brilliant business or as it looked on paper anyways in the transfer window. Stuart Kettlewell, if you ask Motherwell managers, is the closest thing to the devil. Motherwell fans, sorry, the closest thing to the devil. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of expectations for Kilmarnock, and they were probably one of the teams that were expected to be there or thereabouts in relegation battle. It's early days, that could still happen, but a win at Tannadice is good for anyone, really.
Yeah, 100%. I was actually surprised seeing the scores coming in. They went to Tannadice and get 3 points because I expected Dundee United to win that game. So it's like actually a brilliant result for Kilmarnock. But they do seem to be kind of up and down recently. I'd literally don't know what to think of them. 1 minute they'll win, 1 week they'll win, 1 week they'll lose. They're like a 50-50 yo-yo team. You don't know what they're going to expect with Kilmarnock this season.
Yeah, well, they burst my coupon because I backed Dundee United. I thought Dundee United I think they've been class. Like I watched them.
I've been impressed with them as
I
well.
watched the Easter Road, and it generally felt like they were fitter, faster, stronger than the Hibs players, honestly. And that surprised me, that result. I think the one thing Dundee United fans will worry about is Dundee United are very good on the break. See, against teams that are coming to attack against them, they're very good on the break and they're very good at playing through teams. But when the expectation's on them, it just doesn't seem to be working in the same way. I think you've seen that at the weekend, to be fair.
Yeah. Dundee United obviously have had a strong start. Last season, if we roll the clocks back a year and a bit to the start of last season, they were everybody's favourites to go down. Everyone was saying it's going to be between Dundee United and St Johnstone. Those two are going to be fighting it out. Dundee United obviously did really well. Jim Goodwin did really well. They got into Europe. Or gone to European qualifiers. They're now maybe sustaining that at the moment by sitting fifth, and another top six finish could probably be seen as a success. But in terms of that, what is the kind of ceiling for Jim Goodwin and Dundee United in this? Because there is maybe that kind of they're not quite at the levels of a Hibs or a Hearts or an Aberdeen where you could break the old firm at the moment, or you could, well, not Aberdeen, but you could split the old firm and you can kind of take those positive results and go, well, why can't we finish second? Dundee United don't seem quite there. Do you think there is ever a possibility that they could? I'm not so sure myself.
Yeah, I mean, they probably need to spend more to break the old firm. I don't think anyone is at the moment. Listen, I know it's early days, and I know Rangers and Celtic are looking shaky, but I fully expect Celtic to come first and Rangers to come second at the end of the league. The Rangers will get their shit together. Like they've just been that bad. I I think Hibs, Hearts, and Aberdeen seem to be the only ones with the spending power to maybe chase it. But the thing is, you can get conned at any level. Like, look at some of the players the Rangers have brought in with the money they've spent, and and it's been brutal. So listen, I don't think you should talk about a ceiling necessarily. There's always like the Old Firm are always expected to come first and second. If someone breaks that, then happy days, it's a miracle. But I think they should be looking at how they win a Scottish Cup or a League Cup. That's what they should be aiming for in a strong league finish, beating their rivals. That's what they should expect is the best thing as a Dundee United fan. And to be fair, I think they're good enough to win a cup. Truthfully, I think they're good enough to beat Hibs and Hearts.
Well, just before I move on to the final game, I mean, I was supposed to have a good time on this podcast, but the only reason I agreed to do this is because we finally won a game, and I just feel like the whole time we've been dissing Rangers. But anyways,
Yeah, I've
before I
been
move
searching
on
for
to
bites, Alex, but you've not been biting like you do in the group chat, mate.
that, before we move on to the final game, Robbie D's goal is given by the assistant Lionel. It's just over the line. And that's what I would say. It looks just over the line from the angles I've seen. I'm not going to ask you whether it was in or whether it wasn't in, but what I am going to ask you, and I'll bring this to you first, Darren, but it's not a bit ludicrous that we have VAR. I know it's VAR light, but we have VAR,
Yeah.
but we don't have goal line technology.
It's terrible. It's embarrassing for the game. If it was one of the first technologies to actually come into the game down south, I think it was goal line technology. So I don't know how we still. Well, I think we've got it at Hampden. I think that's the only place we've got it in Scotland. But I just feel like it should be all round because it's with the naked eye you can't really see by looking at a camera if it's fully over or fully not. So the goal line technology would just solve that instantly. So we should have it. We need it. We really need it in the game.
It's insane that we don't, to be honest with you.
Aye.
Like,
Well, that's what I was going to bring it on in this was the argument that for VAR in the beginning was that clubs like Rangers and Celtic said, well, we have to deal with this in Europe, and if we want to progress as a country, then you guys are going to have to deal with it in Europe as well. So why don't we just bite the bullet now and try and get ahead of the game? But if you're in the Champions League, you need goal line technology. If you are getting to the further rounds of the Europa League, the Conference League, you need goal line technology. Why don't we just have that at a base level?
Honestly, I thought we had it until last season. When it was an incident with Rangers, I think Rangers scored in the last game of the season. Easter Road was it, and it was called off.
Yeah.
And like it was so obviously over the line. I thought we had it, but I was like, oh no, but goal line technology, I'll have had it. It was like, no, we don't have it. I was like, sorry, what is it? Listen, I'm old enough to remember Lee Griffiths' free kick at Easter Road against Hearts 10 years
That was
ago.
never over the line. Never over the line.
3 yards over the line. So when VAR came in, I was a bit like, right, okay, well, at least they'll cut out that nonsense. Like, I'm sure, like, you'll remember down Ollie Shaw at Tynecastle as well. We've had a few of them. So I thought when VAR came in, it was like, right, okay, well, at least we're sorting that. At least they'll get the offsides. That's fine. But, like, the fact that we don't have it is crazy to me. Like, I'm astounded that we don't have it. It must be very expensive to bring in because I don't see why we wouldn't if it wasn't.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring it on to save the best to last. Not really. It's because I was going through the table, and these are the two of the lowest teams. But yeah, in Livingston, Rangers' hopes of a top six finish were reignited. Their first league win of the season. Innes, you maybe saw a glimpse of what Russell Martin's Rangers are about at Ibrox in the League Cup, but my God, we're really stumbling over the line. A 94th minute win or by our sub right back after our other right back got us ahead early on.
Yeah, I think the most iconic shout on that group chat we've got is that I actually fancied Russell Martin to be a very, very good manager for Rangers. I'm still quite surprised, to be honest with you. I think he's come under a lot of heat. I actually quite like his honesty, to be honest with you. Where like you see that first game where he was like, the players just aren't showing up in the way they should be for this match. I was like, fair play. Like at least he's actually coming and being honest about it. And I think that is a problem with the Rangers team. Like he gets a lot of the flack, but at the end of the day, it's the players that are not showing up for him, and they're clearly not running for the jersey like they are.
Do you think that should have provoked the reaction though? And that's maybe that's the worry is that if you do that, especially on week one, and then there is no reaction because this is from my perspective. Obviously, I've got blue tinted glasses, and so I see it as if we don't win, then the manager has to take a bit of flack. And when he's out there and he's saying stuff and he says it, and then you go because it almost kind of reminded me of that. I remember a clip of Paul Merson on Sky Sports talking about Roberto Martinez, and every time that Everton played, and they could play horrifically, and then you'd go, "That was so poor," and then he would do his press conference, you'd go, "Oh, actually, that wasn't so bad." And that was almost what it felt like with Martin at the start. Was you were going, and especially with a couple of results in Europe, you were going, well, you know what? He's talking about it. There's obviously a lot of change, and sounds like he's quite candid, quite transparent, quite honest, especially after that Motherwell game. Because I agreed at the time, I thought the right way to go about it was that comments, and I agreed with what he said. But then there's not really been that reaction on the pitch since. So who's he saying that for? Is he saying that for kind of that to try and get the fans on his side? Because if you're not invoking a reaction from the players and that, and you're just pissing them off, then it's not going to end well, is it?
Honestly, but I don't think it was as calculated that. I think he was literally just being honest in the moment. That he came in and he's looking what he's seen. He was like, "This isn't good enough in terms of players putting all out on the part for the jersey in the back, especially if they're getting paid." By the way,
Yeah.
and by the way, when he said that, there was still a few weeks to go in the transfer window. I think probably a few of them probably had their eye on the door. They're thinking, "Oh, is it going to be out? Is it going to be in?" The board have stuck with them, and I think Rangers will get better because they have stuck with him. I think they had a chance maybe to get rid of him in the first international break. They didn't do so, probably to the disappointment of a lot of fans. But I think Rangers need to get over this sort of misnomer about him. Like they're almost annoyed at him because he's like too woke and he's like a vegan and like they didn't like his sunglasses and that. Like they almost want this like old school manager, but it's like, well, it is what it is. You want to play aggressive, attacking football, then he's your man. Buy into it. I think as the season go on, Rangers will get better. Whether they're going to be winning league titles under Martin, listen, we'll see. Definitely not this season, but I still think it will get better for him. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of writing on that as well with that comment in the chat saying he's a good manager. Darren, what do you think of Russell Martin's time so far at Rangers? Because I find it hard to believe that anybody thinks that this can end well.
Well, obviously the Hibs result and then scoring last bit at Livingston might give them that bounce that they needed. But every other game has been horrendous to watch. I just feel like the players aren't playing for him. I just said, I don't feel they've got a response to him at all. But you never know. I feel like Rangers do need to stick with him. They've sacked too many managers too early over the past few years. So I do feel like they need to just stick with him and just see how it goes.
He said that it was our best performance so far, that and Hibs, in the first half. And maybe I would agree because we could have scored 4 or 5. I mean, Miovski misses a big chance. There's a couple of big chances in there. I mean, Tavernier obviously misses the penalty as well. But at 1-1, and as you say, I mean, we get the win, but at 1-1, we were as likely to lose it as we were to win it. And it kind of comes from a bit of scuffness, the goal in the end. And David Martindale and Livy are, feel hard done by, and they're right to feel that way. I think the game certainly could have gone either way. But do you think that's that kind of, especially we talked about Celtic having that inevitability, where in that regards, you're almost looking at the odds to stick a fiver on because they're going to win it. And Rangers don't have that and haven't had that for a couple of years. But do you think that's maybe something that winning ugly, Darren, is something that it has to come while the performances are also improving?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, past few years, Rangers and Celtic seem to win ugly quite a lot. You're always sitting there, we're playing against Rangers 0-0, one each. You're just always sitting there, they're going to find a way, they're going to get a penalty, they're going to get something. But I do feel like that will kick in for Rangers again and they'll just start winning games. They always seem to do. They always have a bad start, but I just feel like they'll just kick it into gear and just keep winning.
I was going to say Alex as well. Like he can't win. Like he's ground down. He's got a result, and I think a lot of teams do find it hard against Livingston with that pitch and just the way they set up. Hearts won late, Hibs won late. Even I think Brendan Rodgers hadn't won there in his first spell or something daft like that. So listen, he's won the game. He's beat Hibs, and by the way, Hibs were coming in thinking, "Oh, do we fancy ourselves here?" They've got good players, and they still dealt with Hibs. So let's see how he gets on the next few weeks. I think he does need to start winning now, though. Like,
just before we do kind of wrap up the Martin chat and wrap up the pod, but I know what you're saying, and in terms of board level, there's probably a lot of agreement with you. But do you not think, Innes, that the writing is very much on the wall? Because Rangers make that 2-1 in the 94th minute, and there's seconds left, and there's kind of this little bit of limbs where there's celebration, and at Livy you've got 3 of the 4 stands, so it's quite easy to do so. But a little bit of getting carried away as you do with the last minute winner. I saw the celebration police were out in force, which is always good to see. But then after that, within less than 30 seconds, it goes straight back to the chant, basically calling for his head. Do you think the writing's on the wall? Because once you lose the fans, it's a long, long way back, especially at Ibrox, because it's a fickle place.
Yeah, 100%. But I don't agree with that. I think if he starts getting victories, he gets the fans back on side very quickly. And I will say to you, Alex, I think it was the last time both you and I were on the pod. Hibs and Rangers had never been so similar. Constantly sacking managers, going through this merry-go-round of results. Or they get a wee spell, it's going to happen again, and then it doesn't happen for them. Like, it, okay, he inherited like the worst anyone's ever inherited for a long, long time at Rangers. Let's be real. If he can start picking up results now and start to get the feel good factor back, but bear in mind Celtic aren't very good. Like they didn't lose to Celtic, and I think that if they can start picking up results, as I said, all it takes is a derby win going into Christmas, or is it New Year, having had some good results along the way, and all of a sudden the fans are back on side. Honestly, but he does need to start winning games, though. That is the bottom line.
Darren, I'm going to wrap up the podcast, but before I do just finish, Innes kind of brought up a good point there in saying that Celtic are not that good either at the moment. But do you think that is almost rubbing salt in the wounds, because you're looking at them and you're going, they're terrible. Why are we not like above them? Why are we so far below them right now?
I know it makes it worse for Rangers because obviously Celtic's going through turmoil as well with the fans and the board and stuff like that, and they don't look good at all. But it must be horrible for Rangers fans seeing how bad they are, but Rangers are even that wee bit worse. So it must be a bit. I think that's more the anger on Russell Martin as well, because they realise that Celtic aren't as good this year and probably not as good as they've been the last few years. A good chance to win the league, but just with how bad the start is, the league's gone for Rangers already. I just feel like that's why they're totally against them.
Yeah, some good points, some great points overall on the podcast. Thank you both for joining me. It looks like Rangers will be avoiding a relegation battle, at least for now, and it's just hopeful that it might be something more for Russell Martin. I don't know if it's his hairstyle or if it's his message, but he's hoping for a good hope. We've got a couple other boys in the chat who think Russell Martin's the thing. A couple of them probably Celtic persuasion. And you're happy with top of the table, Darren. So it's looking good for certain teams. It's looking not so good for other teams, but the season goes on. So thank you very much for joining us on this week's podcast.